Oh, you're muted, Sacha.
You'll have to keep both cameras in the studio there, Christy. Friends, welcome to the 5G Crisis Summit. It's a subject which is as existential a threat today as it was when I released the 5G Apocalypse film about 7.5 years ago. As many of you know, I released the film at that time to warn the world to the best of my ability about what I deemed to be an existential threat, not least because I had personally been targeted by a DNA signature targeted bioweaponry in 2016. And that was, I think, 2 or 3 days after the former defense minister of Lithuania had warned me that I was on a hit list. And I was addressing the Lithuanian parliament, in point of fact, on a number of subjects that I saw or my foundation had been researching. And one of them was the existential threat facing the weaponization of the biosphere. And that essentially has been the critical thread that I've been narrating in the work that I've been doing through the International Tribunal for Natural Justice, and as well as a frontline political activist or frontline social activist, however you want to coin it. The bottom line is that making the 5G Apocalypse film certainly changed my life. It introduced me to a great many people around the world in the scientific community, the medical fraternity. And there is one story I will tell anecdotally here, which I think is important. And that is that when Donald Trump was visiting the Queen of England in his first tenure as President of the United States, whilst he was visiting her, the head of his detail came to see me. I think that's because in the Crown, once the security flips to Buckingham Palace or Windsor Castle, it's contained by them. In any event, what I can tell you is that the highest ranking official in Supreme Command came to visit me. She's probably watching right now, and I salute her if she is. She came to see me with her own security detail, and we spent a couple of hours together at my home. And a number of things we were discussing, a number of things connected to the research that my foundation had been doing into the sort of deep state activities and what have you, stuff that I'd been putting out into the field, not in the public domain, but I'd been amongst the leadership in the network that my foundation, Humanitad, had aggregated over many, many years, 20 years, by that time, 18 odd years. She said to me, in parting in that meeting that we had, you'll be pleased to know, Mr. Stone, that your film 5G Apocalypse, the Extinction Event, is actually used now as part of the training manual. Supreme Command. Now, you see, you're not going to hear that from the mainstream. But the fact of the matter is that the world has become so compartmentalized, certainly in the military and intelligence fraternity. It is, and also, I dare say, maybe Judy can speak to this on the panel today, within the medical science fraternity. Certainly within the legal fraternity, as Tom Rentz can almost certainly attest, compartmentalization is how agendas are promulgated. It's how they are fomented and incubated. And they become very real because it is those agendas which then define the policy making, and then the flow of financing, and then how reality emerges on the screens of our life through academia, through the entertainment complex, and through the media complex. So please understand that we are dealing with hyper compartmentalization at every level, which is the critical issue. So we're not here today in this 5G Apocalypse Summit as a clutch of brazen fantasists or alarmists. Be clear about that. Now, that is what the satanic media will spin, and that is what the solipsistic academia would have you believe, that the Judy Mikovitses, the Scott McKays, the Tom Rentzes, the Sacha Stones, the Sherry Tenpennies. I could name 3 or 4 dozen of our immediate friends who are on the front line of trying to free humanity from a satanic and certainly luciferic agenda. But in this panel, you're going to hear the very best voices that there are on the front line and in the trenches. So pay close attention. This is about transparency. It's about full disclosure. It's why we're doing what we're doing. It's why Scott McKay and I have tirelessly toured across the United States and will continue to do so. But let me just say, what is it that we're demanding today? What is it that a summit like this intends? In simple terms, firstly, transparency, full disclosure of deployment plans, health and environmental risk assessments, and the data that justifies mass rollouts. Okay? So no more black boxes, basically. Secondly, accountability. Mr. Anthony Fauci et al. Where evidence shows harm or unlawful deployment, we must pursue remedy through every legal avenue available, and we will. Thirdly, precaution. So where risk exists, the burden of proof must rest with those who deploy. And we refuse to be used as test subjects for corporate experimentation and for profiteering. And it's way beyond the business of racketeering and profiteering. This goes into the metaphysical. This goes into the spiritual realms. Judy speaks at great length to this. Dr. Robert O. Young speaks at great length to this. So does Scott McKay. So this summit is not the end of a debate. It is the ignition of a movement, and a movement of professionals, citizens, whistleblowers, and concerned people of the world who will not be cowed by smear campaigns or bureaucratic stonewalling. And if you're here to learn, to act, to gift your experience, and to stand as a witness, you're welcome. And if you are here doubting, then just listen, scrutinize, ask for the evidence, and hold the presenters here to account. I'll see if we can dial in some Q&A a little bit later on. But in saying that, understand that technology can be a blessing or a weapon. We all know that. If I wasn't using technology, we wouldn't be able to communicate to millions of people around the world. But to be sure, as Mark Steele, the iconic weapons expert in the United Kingdom, who's also on our panel today, will attest, and he's been doing this for decades, technology can indeed be the kingdom of the devil as well. So I want to thank all of the speakers who are on the panel today, and I want to bring them on momentarily. But I believe, Christy, correct me if I'm wrong, we're having a short introduction, summation of the 5G film. So if you could bring that on now, I'll jump in and introduce the panel immediately after.
Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming to the National Press Club Federal Communications Commission Chairman Tom Wheeler.
But if anyone tells you that they know the details of what 5G is going to become, run the other way.
I have to tell people 5G is a killer. I'm Mark Steele, anybody who hasn't heard me. I'm a weapons systems head-up display expert, one of the leading experts in the world. What I'm going to say to you today, do not believe a single word I say. Not one. I want you to do your own research. You'll find it's absolutely terrifying. This 5G roll-up is a weapons system. I've got a letter in with central government because I know about weapons systems more than anything other. This is an existential threat to the economy, to the environment and humanity.
If these transmitters are everywhere, then everyone's at risk, surely.
There's a lot of confusion about what 5G is. The G stands for generation. So you started off with the first transmitter system.
Back in the 1980s.
In the 80s, yeah. So you had 1G, then you had 2G. And as the generations moved on, you started to see more complex signal systems. So the whole thing became more data, quicker downloads, etc., etc. However, 5G is something completely different. A sophisticated, illegal, unlawful transmitter. It allows the signal to travel through concrete brickwork with ease, and it can actually data gather. It is a target acquiring system. Phased array is basically radar off the battlefield. It is extremely good at identifying targets and being able to lock onto targets. And not only that, it can specifically target you as an individual. I had neighbours knocking on the door, talking about children bleeding from the nose. I had images posted on Facebook. And one neighbour in particular came to my door and mentioned the fact that since the LED street lighting had been installed, she was bleeding from the nose every single night. I thought it was unbelievable. However, I spoke to another neighbour who lived not far from the first lady who mentioned this, and she also confirmed that since the LED street lighting had been installed, she also had started to develop nosebleeds and had never had nosebleeds before in her life. That then put me on a journey to investigate. I've measured up to over 3,000 millivolts.
5 to 6 times higher than the guidelines.
Significantly higher than the current Council of Europe 1815 resolution, which states that 200 millivolts should be the maximum. And I'm measuring in bedrooms in Gateshead minimum 600 and up to 4,000.
Does this mean that in 2020, 2021, when 5G is destined to roll out globally, that you're going to get those kind of readings everywhere all the time?
Everywhere all the time.
Worse than that?
Worse than that.
Yes, 5G will connect the Internet of Everything. If something can be connected, it will be connected in a 5G world. Hundreds of billions of microchips connected in products from pill bottles to plant waterers, requiring massive deployment of small cells.
It's not using the same technology. They're switching to military-grade millimeter wave technology. And when you look at this technology, I mean, if you go and look at DARPA reports, come and look at some of the patents that the United States military has put out on what they can do with psychological weapons, all sorts of things, crowd control, active denial, anything you can think of. This is what they can do with 5G.
The FCC has been described by Harvard University's Center for Ethics writer Norman Alster as the most captured agency in D.C., acting more as a industry cheerleader than a regulator. This is especially true today with 5G, where there are serious safety concerns and potentially misleading information coming from the FCC.
They want to put a cell tower in front of your home. You cannot go to a city council and say, hey, stop, I don't want it. I just heard in a lecture that there are 10,000 studies proving that it's harmful. I don't want it. My child is sick. They would tell you, stop. You're not allowed to mention this in the city council.
France has banned Wi-Fi in nursery schools and put warnings out for regular schools because they're finding there's impaired learning capacity in children when they're around Wi-Fi. And they have to put up warning signs where they put Wi-Fi transmitters.
Right now, our brain tumors, thyroid cancer, testis cancer, rectal cancer, everywhere we put our cell phones. And a lot of our children are sick and they're being misdiagnosed and mistreated because the wireless industry has put billions and billions of dollars in the past 30 years to mislead the public as to the health effects and keep the public uninformed.
I've met with molecular and cellular biologists, with blood microscopists, with weapons development experts, frontline activists and researchers, and all the stories I'm hearing from these experts and pundits leads to the same thing. 5G is almost certainly the end game.
We've got scientists and doctors and environmental organizers saying, stop this. Because in terms of the effects of wireless radiation, the science is in. Wireless radiation can lead to cancerous heart tumors. It is linked to infertility, to autism, Alzheimer's, and more. And guess what? All the effects that I just listed, those are some of the effects that are known according to the technology that's being seen today.
We are learning new details tonight about suspected directed energy microwave attacks targeting CIA officers.
U.S. officials say there are now 130 suspected victims, mostly CIA operatives and U.S. diplomats being treated for brain injuries, debilitating headaches and vertigo, the targets they believe of a directed energy microwave weapon.
Very good. Just need to say, I received a note this morning, and this is just by way of speaking to the kind of concerns which we are reading about and receiving constantly through the New Earth movement, the International Tribunal for Natural Justice, through the New Earth University, and through the Lazarus Symposium. But this is a classic one. Someone shared your 5G video with me. Our lives were vibrant, healthy, and beautiful in rural New York. 6+ years ago, they began upgrading a tower near us. We remediate and began recovering. They would massively upgrade. I am crippled, in constant pain, and now that they smeared our road with smart meters, it is so much worse. We had them put analog on ours, but the network signals from neighbors is extremely intense. Anyway, too many friends nationwide are now dead from this. Too many pets are dead. Now this scourge is making life so hard it's difficult to push through. Thanks for doing your video. The friends who used to encourage me are dead. No one seems to care. I sent your video to the town hall. I am too weak to do much else. No car either. My life was so vibrant, so full, and now this. I pray I make it to the bathroom most days. Thank you, and God bless, Capri. Well, God bless you, Capri. And that's the kind of message which frontline activists and advocates for truth and disclosure and remedy are reading all the time. Good lawyers, good attorneys, good activists. It's an abject disgrace. This is not the stuff you see on Fox or BBC or in the mainstream for obvious reasons, because the mainstream academia and media complex are the very enablers of that, a satanic status quo. In any event, let's move on. What I want to do now is introduce to you, friends, for introductory comments, beloved Dr. Judy Mikovits, who needs no introduction to this audience. Having said that, I can't see her in the back room. So is she there? Christy, help me out. Hi, Judy. You'll need to unmute. Okay. You'll need to unmute your microphone, darling.
How's this?
Very good. How do we
Am I
find you
unmuted
today,
now?
Judy? Yes, indeed. Thank you for joining us. How are you doing?
Well, I'm well. I'm in the Boise airport.
Oh, where are you headed?
Burbank, home for a day or two before I run out again.
Very good. Well, I'm in Los Angeles the whole of next week. I hope to run into you.
Okay, that would be lovely, but I doubt it, honey.
Okay, Judy, we've got you have a particular product which we're going to be promoting later on in the summit. But as it relates to 5G, what is your standing start opinion of the 5G phenomenon? When we say 5G, we're talking about weaponized biosphere, obviously. Right,
and my perspective from there has always been the products are only the products that have been made available to me. But as I'm here in the Boise airport, it's that Leidos machine that everybody walks through and puts their hands up and gets hit by that bioweapon. And Leidos, LEIDOS, is the National Cancer Institute, where I worked from June 10th, 1980 to May 11th, 2001. Oh, how come your National Cancer Institute is your bioweapon in the airport, where they hit you with that 5G, that pulsed electromagnetic frequency, and they say, oh, it's no worse than your cell phone. Oh, yeah, they're tuning in that frequency to the injections, to the COVID shots, now since at least 2009. Oh, the SARS-CoV-2 bioweapon, actually published by China, Berlin, and your Harvards. That bioweapon, SARS-CoV-2, where we know the exact frequencies of HIV, XMRV, and SARS. So people unwittingly don't realize, oh, I didn't get that shot. No, which shot did you get? Since all bioweapons, since every shot has been a manufactured mRNA since 2009, intended to cause cancer. There's no such thing as turbo cancer. So just getting the general population, my passion is getting people to not walk through that Leidos machine, to not allow face detection. Do not allow them to put that bioweapon into the iris of your eye. Don't stand there as a self-respecting United States of America citizen or wherever you're from and sit there and hold up your hands and let them detonate the bioweapons they've injected for decades. Leidos, Leidos. Why is a bioweapon your National Cancer Institute? Why were they in 1996? That's the question.
Thanks, darling girl. Thank you very much indeed. Stay with us, Judy. I want to bring in Scott McKay. Scott, welcome, friend.
Good to see you. Good to see you, Mark. Good to see you, Dr. Judy. Ian, hey, I just listening to you talk about back as far as 2009. This was almost prophetic in its rollout. And Sacha, you and I have talked about this a number of times. We went on tour in 2021, and I'm sure the world saw this when they tried to lock everybody down. Of course, a lot of countries, a lot of people acquiesced to it. It was pretty amazing because 6-8 months later, when things loosened up, all of a sudden, everywhere you went, you saw these massive 5G towers. It's like, where the hell these come from? Like, how did we not see massive construction going on around the country on interstates and on major highways where these towers are everywhere? Like, how did they do that under the cover of darkness? And again, I think it was part of their operation is to lock everybody down so people aren't asking these questions like, hey, why these crews everywhere? Because then people like Judy would have popped up. Others would have said, well, here's why we should be revolting against all this construction. Look, it sounds like over time, as we've all come to know each other, travel together on this wake up operation for 5 years, it baffles me that with everything that's been put in front of the population, we still don't have a mass revolt against it. And it's just it all comes down to people just happen to think that government is the source of good, and government is there to do good by us, right by us, and protect us. And we've been trying to tell people, listen, the whole idea of global governance right now, right? Reagan said it best. We're talking way back in the 80s in his inauguration speech. He said, look, government isn't government isn't the solution. Government is the problem. And he said that was such an iconic statement to make back then. And of course, today, same thing. DARPA, military, government agencies, they are driving the rollout of these weapons. And I know the first time that I had experience and exposure to it as a weapon, you and I were up at Penn State, Sacha, and we did that event up there. It was obviously a bioweapon release. The whole 2 front rows got wiped out. I ended up losing my father in an attack.
People died.
People died. Yep. And then on that Sunday, that was a Sunday. We had an event or two. I flew out on a Thursday, a couple of days later to Anaheim, and when I got back after that, that's when I thought I was going to die in that hotel room in Nashville. I was in the dark for 4 days, couldn't get out of bed, couldn't move. I've never felt anything like that. And it was Dr. Robert Young said they hit you with a microwave weapon. Everything you're describing are the symptoms. He said, Scott, they know where you are everywhere you go. They're tracking people like you all the time, and they can hit you with certain frequencies to do what they did to you. Again, I've never felt like that bad in my life. It was like from the bones outward. And then it took me 2 full months to recover from that. So it's a real thing. And thank God you're doing things like this, and what you did years ago with this film, this expose. Talk about prophetic and critical, certainly now at this time. So I sure hope people start paying more attention to how much they've lied to us about everything from these cell phones. They've pushed back against that, causing brain cancer.
Yeah.
The results are in.
Well, Scott, is it an irony that you say, people are not revolting out there, revolting on the streets? Well, the very reason they're not revolting is because the weapon system against which we suggest they should be revolting is preventing that by dampening consciousness itself, and the capacity to revolt, or the capacity to define real reality from false light reality. So this dialing down of the consciousness of humanity, whether you've got glyphosates and aluminum and barium and strontium and mercury and fluoride, obviously being a seminal piece here. Obviously, every human being has now been reduced to a ticking time bomb. But the fact of the matter is that the whole wage slavery paradigm as well prevents people from being able to muster, get together, and revolt in the way that we did in the medieval days. Off with their heads, Now it's like, off with their heads. Somebody please take care of the problem. It's terrifying, but that to me is a real part of the issue. Let me bring on the great Tom Rentz. Sir, so happy to see your face.
Oh, it's an honor to be here, Sacha. And I'm going to tell you, when we talk about this 5G stuff, I'm going to talk about this like we need to talk about this to the normies, because I'm of the belief that part of the next wave of healing that we have to start to embrace is energy. Right? Energy permeates everything. Everything is energy. And for some reason, we've been told that energy doesn't have anything to do with healing, that this stuff that we're putting in the air doesn't have anything to do with our health. It's insanity. I mean, we're composed of energy. So the idea that it doesn't impact us is insane. In 1971, OSHA put out its first standards for people, and this is law, right? This is law. We can talk about this to the normies. To the people who don't know, who aren't awake. 1971, OSHA puts out its first standards for RF exposure. Why would it put out standards for RF exposure if it's harmless? Why would it do that? Well, it wouldn't. Those standards have been updated. The last major update was 1991. This is law. There's no debate about it. There's no question about it. OSHA didn't put these standards out because this stuff's harmless. They put it out because it is harmful and can be harmful. Now, of course, much like we saw with COVID and we saw everywhere else, what they do is they won't do the right studies to determine how harmful it is or where it's harmful. What we've learned through COVID, and what I've learned through people like Dr. Judy and through all the scientists that have told me, this is how they cover it up in the science and health. Well, they do it the same way here. The science around technology is just the same thing. Where it's harmful, they just don't study it because it's inconvenient. So the data isn't there, but it's not because they don't know. We have OSHA standards. Those standards exist for a reason. But what they don't do is they don't study long-term constant exposure. Now, let me throw this in another direction, because I want you guys to be armed with something you can take to a normie. Do you know what frequency your microwave oven runs on?
Go on.
2.4 gigahertz. Do you know what frequency every Wi-Fi router in your house runs on? 2.4 gigahertz. Now, you have constant, long-term, consistent exposure to very low levels of RF radiation, and now we're putting it in our houses. We're putting it, your phone, this thing, when it talks to your Wi-Fi router, 2.4 gigahertz. Right? Why is that? Is that a coincidence? I'm sure it's a coincidence, right? So now think about this. So I looked this up, and I would love Judy to talk about this because she's much smarter than I am. She's much smarter than everybody, but So one of the things that we see is, I said, well, if I put my meat in a microwave, what's meat? It's muscle, right? It's muscle. It's animal tissue. If I put it in the microwave, what happens? It gets lumpy, it gets hard, it gets awful. Now, one of the reasons for that is a process called protein denaturation, right? This isn't debatable. This is the science. This is us following the science, right? So protein denaturation. Well, what is that? So I look at, well, tell me about protein denaturation. Well, it's energy. Biochemistry, this is Judy's world, right? When we add protein or energy to anything, it impacts the chemistry. Well, protein denaturation, when we start screwing with proteins, what happens? Cancers, things like that. So the idea that this constant low-level exposure to RF radiation is safe and that there's no issue and that there's no problem, it's insanity. Of course there's an issue. Of course there's a problem. And we know it because there wouldn't be OSHA standards if they didn't need them, right? Now, they haven't properly studied to see how this all works. But listen, we're at a point, Sasha, I did some homework because I was excited about this. Because, everybody, I do my work and I do my thing. Everybody knows about the COVID, this, that, and other. But I was excited to come on here and talk to you about this because the 5G thing is so much bigger than people realize. The RF exposure that we're getting, the energy exposure, and RF, by the way, 5G is a communication standard. What we're talking about is various types of energy in the air that's affecting our bodies, because energy plus any sort of matter it impacts the chemistry. Judy can talk about that much better than me. So we know this is real. We can prove this is real, and we can now make the arguments in a way that we can reach the normies. I got a lot of that put together, and I'm excited to be here with you to talk about that, because while a lot of us, and a lot of your fans especially, know spiritually, and what is spirituality? What are we talking about? We're talking about the energy of the universe, our soul, our spirit. Everybody, a lot of your fans realize and recognize that has a major impact. But what we're talking about now is the way that we quantify it and bring it to the masses so that we can make these arguments in an impactful way and then create change.
Beautiful. Beautifully stated. Thank you, Tom. Beautiful. I want to bring on Carolyn Mansfield. There she is. Carolyn, welcome and thank you for joining the summit.
Hi, good afternoon, Sasha. Hello, everybody on the panel. It's great to meet you all. My contribution to the conversation today is really around studies that I've been doing, looking at Bluetooth signals coming off human test subjects. And I'm really excited to be able to share the information that we've been able to break down from the various studies that we've done. And we're talking about, these EMFs in this conversation. And I think the easiest thing for people to do is to grab a meter, because the Buildings Biology Guidelines sets that the standard for just within your home or for your phone should be no more than 10 microwatts per square meter. And if you get a Safe and Sound Pro 2 meter, you can measure. I've been out on the streets of London, and it's over 1 million microwatts per square meter in a lot of the streets. It's way above any guidelines, and we're all just bathing in it on a daily basis. And the only place actually to get some remediation from all these microwaves is actually when you just go into nature, and actually the trees do protect you. So that's one way to try and get out of it. If you're living in a city, is to get into nature as much as possible. But I'm very excited today to be able to share some information that is pretty groundbreaking, I have to say. It's new information that even previous studies to do with Bluetooth signals coming off human bodies has never been able to share. So I'm looking forward to this conversation a lot.
Yeah, we'll be ready to, Christy, bring me into frame, please. We will be able to show your presentation shortly. Let me just introduce our other, Christy, not yet, thanks. I just want to bring on Mark Steele from the United Kingdom, who's in the green room there. There we go. Mark, thanks for joining us, brother. You've been the main subject of the 5G Apocalypse film, which we made 8 years ago, 7.5 odd years ago. How much of what we put in that film, largely around your breakthrough and vanguard research in the weapons arena, I'm not sure why Carolyn's on screen. Christy, could you please toggle correctly? Thank you. Mark, what is your summation of what we told the world 7.5 years ago? How right were we?
100% correct. 100% correct. The phase to rear element, the antenna design for 5G, was patented in 2006 as an electronic assault weapon. 5G is an assault weapon. The media access code that Christy's talking about is I set up a group in the UK called the Magneteers. So we could go out and test people who've been injected with the nanometer antenna to be tracked and traced and then terminated. It's not a tracking technology. It is, but it is for termination. So people have to realize you are at threat. We've discovered recently in the United Kingdom, in most cityscapes, phased array laser detection range and weapon systems. The technology is battlefield derived. It's called fusion. It's military civilian fusion technology. So on top of the 5G monopole phased array weapon systems, we now have a transport network system that operates. It's a biometric sensing technology, and it operates. It's the IEE standard 802.15.6. If anybody wants to look at that, so what's actually happened? The militarized your transport infrastructure with phased array electronic assault weapons in the terahertz range. We've got laser weapons right across the United Kingdom in most cities, laser weapons and phased array radar weapons deployed on transport infrastructure, on pedestrian crossings aimed at close proximity to victims. These people haven't stopped. The injectable nanomaterial antenna, as Judy spoke about before, we identified, and we have got the evidence to that, these nanomaterials that are lanthanide coated. Now, lanthanides are used to track people in a scanner. So Siemens, one of the large manufacturers of these weapon systems, company called Unix in the UK, but it's Siemens across the world. They're using the same technologies that they use to elucidate a victim in a scanning machine is what they've actually put into the COVID-19 injectable. Now, this is a track, trace, termination technology. This is far more sinister than the 5G network that we spoke about early on, Sacha, where we'd identified the phased array element. Phased array, like I said, was a patented electronic assault weapon, patented in 2006. So things have moved on significantly since then. These globalists, this United Nations, murdering everybody in any way that they can, whether it be the nanomaterials, any of the the defense industry who've pushed this technology, the nano Quell project. There's a number of projects that were carried out by the military to put this technology into the public domain and to cause mass genocide, mass democide. This isn't genocide. This is democide. It's the greatest crime ever been perpetrated on the unwitting public of the whole world. I mean, this is just absolutely unbelievable. I mean, nano-domestic Quell was a project run by the DoD. This is the contamination nanoparticles to elucidate the victim in these fields. So these mesh networks can now see, can elucidate, and can target specific individuals in these places.
Yeah, very good.
That's where we are. Things have moved on quite a bit. Everything was said early on came true. Fortunately, we've got a number of court cases where I've been in court against Transport for London for the deployment of the electronic assault weapon. We currently have a number of court cases. Blade Runners, I would suggest everybody look at the Blade Runners. Blade Runners have been chopping down this equipment right away across London. It's fantastic. These are weapon systems. We're going to be defending them in the courts in next year, July next year. Keep everybody to understand these so-called camera infrastructure, low emission zones are nothing more than a militarization of your cityscapes to murder. These are weapons, electronic assault weapons in the close proximity to the people.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, brother. Thank you for that update. Okay. Friends, I also want to introduce host of the Ethan Lucas Show and my dear friend, colleague, and accomplice. In fact, I'm sitting in his studio in Nashville roundabout now, so I do owe Ethan that thanks. Ethan Lucas, what say you about 5G in 2025?
Well, it was one of the reasons that I decided to start the Sirona company with the nanotechnology, because I knew that what they were doing was going down to the nano level, and it was attacking the body at the DNA and the mitochondrial level, which are the essential components of all life energy and all life source in the body. And so when we did that, I think we made a great leap and bound. And now we've been able to team up with Dr. Robert O. Young and his formula, his nano zeolite formula, to help further what we're doing with all of these nano formulas that have been very essential, I think, for removing the nanotoxins, the nanobots, the graphene oxide, the chimeric pathogens that they've created in these labs, which some of that stuff I think hasn't even been talked about that much, but I believe they're activated by the 5G signals, and it's absolutely horrendous what they've done, unspeakable things. And I think more and more of this will start to come out later, but it is a real threat. It hasn't gone away. I think they've just kind of dropped the noise meter on it just to get people to kind of lull themselves to sleep before they really flip the switch. And I think people need to be prepared for that.
Yeah, indeed. I'd like to bring Judy back in because I'm nervous about Judy's line dropping, being as it is that she's in an airport. And I also want Judy to speak up. Christy, could you kindly drop Judy in? I can't toggle at the same time here. I'm having a real hard time operating the studio whilst I'm speaking. Judy, before we lose you, just your feedback on what you've heard, emphasis from Mark Steele, the weapons expert, just what you've heard, and then I want you to also please speak about the protocols that you've brought forward.
Well, the very interesting thing, Sasha, what Mark just said, is the lanthanides. So the lanthanides and their fluorescence excitation was what I did at the University of Virginia in 1978-79, was to study the excitation, meaning fluorescently you excite them, and then you watch how long it takes for the fluorescence, for the light to change, for the spectral clustering to change. So, in fact, and what Ethan, I think, was just saying is just that, and these bioweapons, the trans receptor potential, that's a transistor radio. All that signal has to do is touch in an energetic field the outside of the sensors on the cells. They're called TRPs, trans receptor potential. Vanilloid one, A1 is where is your protection from all those deadly hydrocarbons. So yeah, we know those censored. And how interesting that I started at the National Cancer Institute June 10th, 1980. When the first bioweapon, HIV, which never was LAV, what we have to understand is they fine-tuned these bioweapons and then tried purposely to divide each other.
Yeah.
HIV was a gain of function injected in every single hepatitis B shot since 1989-91, right in there. And so that didn't work very well because it didn't aerosolize. So you had to piece the different sensors. The XMRVs, X just means Xeno.
Yeah.
If it's born and you inject it. So they piece together, and the New York Times shows you so beautifully how this beautiful tulip just happens to piece together. And you go back to the fraud and the corruption, criminal activity surrounding our 2009 science paper. Who is John Coffin, and why was he the reviewer? And who is the UK Jonathan Stoy? Why we just call him Fat Boy Stoy? And why did he control our blood supply?
Yes.
And they know they were transmitting. Who is Arthur Ashe and were Arthur Ashe and Ryan White when Tony Fauci told everybody only gay men and IV drug users and therefore. So once you learn who these people are, and I just, and then you see the lies in the public. So it's taken a long time for it to come out. But what matters most is that everybody I'm sitting around at this airport stops going through those bioweapon detonation machines and stops putting their face in front of the camera. That's up to you. If you
Indeed.
destroy the iris of your eye, all the way back in the 80s, there was a paper that came out in Nature, and all I have to tell you is the title of it, and it's the last talk I was going to give for Rashid Buttar, and it was called Iris, Immune Reconstitution inflammatory syndrome. What to do when you had no immune system. It shut down and bar the door, but you turn that fire on and that flame, and you'll drop like a rock when you go through that
Right.
system.
Right. Indeed. Well, thank you for reminding us of beloved Dr. Rashid Buttar. What a wonderful human being he was, and for sure a hero in our times. I'd like to just bring in Dr. Robert O. Young. Is in prison, as everyone knows. In my view, he is the most targeted medical doctor in recent history in the United States of America. And his case is a classic landmark signature case, not dissimilar to Judy's, it has to be said. But we tried to set it up so that we could bring Robert in live from the prison, and we were doing the testing with him this morning. He was having to stand in queues to get to the video thing, and it was a nightmare. We did a couple of bad takes, and then eventually we had to get multiple devices open to record the audio, because clearly the prison service were jamming the capacity for us to bring him live into StreamYard, our studio. So in any event, I think we managed to get the capture. He had a message for Scott McKay and Tom Rentz and the crew here, as well as a message for humanity at large. Take it away, Christy.
Well, Sacha, thank you. I'm feeling great. I'm feeling better than I've ever felt before. I mean, I was under so much stress to get things done because I knew what was going to happen. I anticipated it. I'm just so grateful to be alive. I'm grateful that I'm just totally focused on myself right now, but in other ways focused on family and country and humanity as a whole. So I can't disconnect from that at all. It's just part of me. But I'm feeling good. Thanks for asking.
Great stuff. Robert, as you know, this is the 5G Apocalypse Crisis Summit. Many people think that the 5G thing was just a bit of noise and it's gone away. They don't seem to understand that the weaponization of the biosphere is probably the gravest existential threat facing humanity. It is the very worst of the so-called deep state. It is the very worst of the so-called Luciferic Sabbatean agenda that's been taking place incrementally over the last 100 years since the Rockefeller and Rothschild Compact essentially weaponized medicine and food and the entire health industry. We've got at the table here Tom Rentz, the leading attorney in the country. We've got Dr. Judy Mikovits, our patron saint of whistleblowing in the medical science and public health administration. We've got Mark Steele, the UK weapons expert, who was the prime subject of the 5G Apocalypse film, which I brought out almost 8 years ago. How serious is the existential threat today?
It is serious and it's real. And that was part of my work. I mean, I needed to know for myself because I love my children, I love my family, I love humanity as a whole, and I just didn't want to see what I was anticipating, a technology that would literally hook human beings up to the internet of humans with IP addresses via, cell towers, Bluetooth, and it was a technology that I discovered that when I was concerned about the non-disclosed ingredients in the corona or COVID vaccines. I found a nanotechnology, graphene ferric oxide, which self-assembles under Tesla phoresis when it's activated by 4G plus and 5G technology at 2.4 gigahertz and up. It forms into threads, into tubes, into biochips, which literally connects you up to the internet of humans, taking away your identity as a human, literally converting you into a transhuman, which is being controlled by external sources.
So, given that, I know that my main reason for wanting to speak to you and bring you into the summit was because of the formula that you've innovated that disconnects that MAC address or that Google address in the human being from the spheres. Can you speak about that, please, Robert?
Yeah, so the product is called Zeolite, and Zeolite, the first three letters stands for structure, surface charge, size, and system. The E stands for electromagnetic connections, and an output that literally is connecting human beings up to the internet connection. So Wi-Fi, Bluetooth can activate anything from your blood pressure to your blood sugars to your body temperature to literally send messages back and forth. This technology that has been implanted in us and is in our food, our water, and in our air is self-assembling under the 5G technology. And so before I was taken into custody, I created an antidote to this, and I had no idea it was a broad spectrum antidote that would disconnect that connection between, your body, your organs, your reproductive system, and the Internet of Humans. It disconnects the IP addresses, and it does that by literally pulling that technology into its body. This technology has a clinoptilolite ingredient in sea plasma. The product is called Zeolite, and it's by your company, Sirona, that's bringing this product out, this unique product that I've developed, and was able to test it, publish on it, have it peer-reviewed and double peer-reviewed by other scientists, which is now published. I've published numerous articles on this technology. But this is a unique product. It is exclusive to Sirona. It's called Zeolite, which is a product that you take under the tongue 2 to 3 times a day to disconnect. And this is what we're finding. It happens. It literally disconnects this technology. In addition, we found that it chelates or binds to glyphosate, to mercury, to lead, to forever chemicals like FOS and microplastics like polyethylene glycol, but specifically to this self-assembling graphene ferric oxide that self-assembles based upon the Tesla phoresis technology. It turns into these biochips, these nanobiochips, these nanobots that literally then these technocrats can assign IP addresses to your body, literally controlling you.
Yeah.
Not only your body, but your mind, your heart, and your reproductive system.
Well, I can tell you, Robert, from the testimonies that the International Tribunal took on the Judicial Commission into Human Trafficking, we know from speaking to multiple medical scientists and multiple military veterans uniquely, quite specifically, I'm talking about the military veterans, that they corroborate exactly what you're talking about, that even 20 years ago, the V2K, the voice-to-skull technology was being deployed, and these holographic type technological innovations were being utilized to project and install information packets into the human body and into the human mind. So this is all connected to the MK Ultra scenario. The whole world is woken up to that. What you're saying is that whole stealth game has become a whole lot more sophisticated. We understand that piece. Thank you for innovating the product. Truly grateful to you. Robert, do you have a message for Judy, for Tom Rentz, for Scott McKay, who's been your ardent champion from the day of your judgment? Obviously, Ethan Lucas, Carolyn Mansfield, Mark Steele, and everyone in the studio here.
All I can say to all of you that I love you, I honor you, I appreciate what you're doing for humanity as a whole, and for us individually to get this information out, to get this product, this Zeolite out to every human being on the planet, to disconnect this and shut down this these technocrats and this technology that's hooking every human being up to the internet. This has to be stopped. And so I'm grateful that your team is standing up for truth and is unveiling the characters that are behind all this to bring it down and to expose it.
Well,
and bring it to light.
Well, God bless you, Robert. And a message for the public at large, please. You have such a following of millions and millions of people around the world who know that you are the landmark case, that you've been uniquely targeted. And in that sense, you are undergoing a rite of passage on behalf of all of us. And we thank you for it. I thank you for it. Your parting message to the audience and to the world at large.
Well, God bless you all. May you understand that your birthright is peace and your destiny is freedom. And, you know, I feel more free, even though I'm incarcerated, I feel more free now than I've ever felt before, because I know that there's you out there and others like you, Tom Rentz, Judy Mikovits, all of you. I love you. Keep up the wonderful work. Keep doing this work, because it's not only going to save humans, but it's going to save the animals and all of this planet. That this natural clinoptilolite from volcanic lava from the bottom of our oceans to the mountains that are pouring this lava literally has been nanosized to permeate the cell membrane, to disconnect the technology, and to protect you from so many poisons. And I've said this before, Sacha, that people are not sick. They do not have diseases. I want you to understand that you are being poisoned and you are being irradiated. Chemical and radiation poisoning is the causes of what we are calling diseases and sicknesses. And so read the research, look at what we're doing, start feeling better, protect yourself, protect your family with this zeolite. And I'm just so grateful that you're getting it out to the world now.
Okay, there you have it. Scott McKay, your commentary, brother. You've been very much shoulder to shoulder with Robert Young, and we were hanging out together with him last year in Malibu. Of course, we've been, I've known for Robert for years, and I've been certainly for the last 5-6 years understanding the horror of the journey that he's been navigating at any given moment, waiting to have the entire state apparatus move against him and tear him from the bosom of his family. And that's before we even talk about Dr. Galina Migalka and what happened between to her as a result. But your thoughts on Robert's case, and then I want to get a feedback from Tom Rentz as well, just about the abomination of the legal process as it relates to a case like Judy Mikovits, obviously many years ago, and today, Dr. Robert Young, same, nothing has changed. So, Scott, your take on Robert's case.
It's fascinating how this this cabal has captured every aspect of agency or institutions on the planet. The courts no different. I wasn't in the courtroom, but Matthew Hazen was there. Others were there, and the case was completely demolished. They demolished this case in the courtroom, Robert's side, and there were no less than admitted 11 Brady violations. And the judge's response to that is none of these Brady violations rise to the degree of a mistrial. I'm like, there's no varying degrees to a Brady violation. It is or it isn't. And of course, they were railroading him into prison. Matthew spent a fortune, hired an investigator to dig up. Because I said when this was happening, and I went public a month before, he was going to be sentenced and, rained a shitstorm down on this court, the judge, the assistant DA, Gina Darvis, that we were going to find out over time, the podcast world, look into every one of these people, including the jurists who come up with a guilty plea or a guilty vote, and they did not. Nobody would pick their heads up and look forward in the courtroom. They all had their heads down, probably in shame. Said, we're going to find out where the money's coming from. These people are being paid. And of course, it raised such a shitstorm that the court postponed the sentencing for a month. We got new information a month later, and I went on another attack when we got the new information about the text messages captured between the assistant DA, proving this criminality, how they're, and we know this, the politicians that are getting paid off, they're using an intricate real estate scam, as they are in Nashville in a big way that Sean Taylor exposed. You see Letitia James now being pursued and prosecuted for mortgage fraud. And then you have the same thing going on with Adam Schiff and other people. I said, there is a way that these people are getting money to these crooks who are railroading Robert. And again, that information came out, and they postponed again for the next month. And then I know in court during the sentencing, they brought my name up in the Patriot Street Fighter podcast for whatever reason. But the reality is we have to go on offense for people like Robert. Because it does have an impact. I believe they would have put him in for 20 years so he'd die in there. I think we raised such a shitstorm and so much focus on this crooked judge.
Without a doubt. Without a doubt, you're right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, without a doubt, you're right about that. Tom, what are your thoughts on the Robert Young case as it relates to Judy's many years ago, but it seems to be the same trajectory?
Well, I think you've really got to understand the nature of the legal system right now, and well, I don't know how else to say it. In my opinion, it's broken. There's so many different things. I'll give you a great example. There is a credible charge that I could bring in the court that would probably get to discovery directly against Big Pharma for the COVID vaccines, right? It would be a RICO case, and there's a bunch to it, a lot more than we'll get to here. The cost for me to file this case credibly and to get anywhere in court would be $6 million-ish. So $6 million, we can have a shot at getting some justice on these murder jabs. What's happened is that the justice system has been politicized and broken, and in part that stems from the fact that our DOJ and our state AG's offices they have no budget limitations. They can come after you. When you graduate law school, if you are the best and the brightest, you frequently take a government job, because once you do that, you're going to then be able to move on to a high-paid partner position in a law firm. So you have all the best and brightest attorneys there. You have an infinite budget. There's no responsibility. They can continue working forever. It's again and again and again, the deck is stacked against we the people. What Robert dealt with is the same thing that Judy and so many others have dealt with. He was in a space that the government doesn't like, Big Pharma doesn't like. And so, yeah, even if you accept the government's argument at face value, the way they've gone after him over and over and over again, and I believe he was actually accused at one point of conspiracy to commit murder.
Yeah,
there was just no credibility. I mean, they just, based on what I said, there's just nothing credible about it, right? This is prosecutorial overreach, and it indicates to me as a lawyer, when I look at this is the kind of thing you see when someone wants to really just shut someone down, shut them up, make them go away. When you start filing crap charges, now compare that with what a guy like me has, right? So I'm filing suits for free on behalf of small businesses and people who were shut down, people who were injured, and I'm doing all these different things. And I got courts trying to sanction me, coming after me for everything, for filing legitimate, decent claims. So the government can get away with prosecutorial misconduct, with absolute just indiscretions like you can't believe. You cannot go after a judge or a prosecutor, no matter how egregious their behavior is. You cannot really, they're immune from prosecution or lawsuit or anything else. And they basically created a situation where their side is bulletproof, our side has targets on their back, and it's just the system is very broken. I mean, It's very, very broken.
Indeed. Okay, thank you for that, Tom. Sobering stuff, but God knows all of us on this panel understand fully how that works. Carolyn Mansfield has prepared a short presentation. Carolyn, speak to what it is you're about to show us, please.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, the reason I'm on here today is really to run people through a study that I did this year regarding these Bluetooth signals that are coming off human people, basically. And it's really following in the footsteps of these other studies which have been done, which is the Blue Truth documentary by Dr. Chavez out of Mexico. And there's also a French study called The Experiment with about 30 test subjects, where these studies are able to prove that people were emitting Bluetooth signals, haven't taken the the COVID shot, and also those who'd taken PCR tests. So the idea was born, like, let's do our own study and see if we can replicate this. But this study wasn't just to find out whether people were emitting MAC addresses. It was a longitudinal study and an intervention study, because we wanted to find out whether there was a possibility of disabling these MAC addresses. So that's where the idea started. And I began testing people with what we call mobile apps, Bluetooth detection apps. And actually, the apps that I was originally using were very, very proficient at testing people for these Bluetooth addresses. If you get the protocol right, where you have to go out into a field where it's a technology-free environment, about 100 meters to 200 meters away from any living souls, basically, on these phone apps. And I started to test subjects, and I was absolutely amazed that I found people with these Bluetooth emitting signals. So in the protocol, obviously, there's no other Bluetooth devices. This is just coming from the person. So the idea was to run a study, but I knew I was over my head because I obviously would know that to do a study just relating to phone apps would not hold any credence. So I had to search for IT expert in the field to come in and replicate with the exact equipment that was used in the Bluetooth documentary in the French study. And, we know that, for example, on the picture here with La Quinta Columna, they were looking at the Pfizer shots, and they were able to find these sort of self-assembling sort of technology, which is these chips with antennas that potentially are giving off these Bluetooth signals that have been delivered into people. If you go to the next slide, please. Dr. Robert Young was actually the very first practitioner to look at all the COVID shots under the microscope, and he was able to confirm that they were all containing graphene oxide. And his microscopy work is, obviously the top in the world. And in this particular picture, he was able to drill down and find that the self-assembling nanotechnology is coming together to form potential microchip-sized Bluetooth signaling with antennas. And I feel this is potentially where these signals are coming from. If you go to the next slide, please. So this is where the study was done. The expert that I got to come along comes from Bulgaria. He'd been testing people in the field for the last 2 to 3 years over the COVID period. And he was able to, as I say, replicate with all the professional grade equipment that was used in the previous studies by the scientific teams. So he came over, and one by one, we started to retest the test subjects I had been using to test with my phone. And quite astounding, we found that the professional grade equipment, the phones were just as proficient as professional grade equipment, but the only difference is that you can't, track down further as to what these signals are. So if anyone wants to go and be testing their loved ones or themselves, they can contact me or yourselves. We can give these people the information that they need to find out exactly what Bluetooth apps are the best ones out there for testing. So what we discovered was, yes, people were obviously emitting these Bluetooth signals. And as I said, this was the first longitudinal study and intervention study. So we had test subjects where they came along at a baseline test after we'd already tested them about 3 or 4 times. So these people were known to have these Bluetooth signals. And the actual study that I did was filmed independently by David Icke's team. So there was no question that maybe anything else was going on. The whole thing was documented, so everyone can see for themselves that this is true, what was happening and what we were picking up on with all this professional grade equipment. And we were able to, with this professional grade equipment, able to break down what these signals are. So what we discovered was that the signals coming off human test subjects was very unique for the human. And it was actually a signal that is 1 packet every 2 seconds with intervals occasionally. So on this chart here that's just on, you can see that on the top left-hand side, that is the human signal. And the nearest one to that is actually when the phone is in Find Me mode. that gives off a signal that is 3 packets every emission, or every 2 seconds, roughly. But it's very constant. There's no gaps. So what was interesting is when we delved down further into what this signal is coming off humans, is that it comes under the category of like a beacon, and also under the category of laboratory. So in my mind, it's like we're like lab rats and we're being tracked, because what the signal is saying, as far as we can tell, is like it's just pinging and it's just saying, hello, here I am, it's me. So it's just giving out a signal. So you can see also that we were able to break down what these signals look like coming off, say, a gimbal camera. And that would be like 125 packets per emission. So there's obviously, the more data, which is what a packet is, the more data that's being transmitted or used, the higher the packet number. So you can see that's why when there's 1 packet per emission coming off a human, even though it's quite, it's just 1 packet, it's still giving off some kind of data. And if you go to the next slide, please, Christy. I feel this slide is really interesting to look at, because now we can see the packets on a slightly different graph, and you can see the human signals right down at the bottom at this 1 packet per signal. So very low data output compared to other devices. And you can see also Fitbit watch at 5 packets per emission. I just feel like when people can see this visually, instead of just talking about it, it just gives them some idea in their head as to what this signal looks like and the power of it. And it's not to take away that that this signal is not harmful at all, because even though it's 1 packet per second, it's still in the microwave realm. It's still giving out at 2.4 gigahertz. So you can imagine that the only analogy I can try to put to people is, you can imagine you've got 1 car going down a highway, the highway being 2.4 gigahertz. If you're using a gimbal camera, you've got 125 cars going down the highway, the 2.4 gigahertz highway, at the same time. So it's giving just more data, but it's still using that same pathway. So when we talk about the humans giving off a Bluetooth signal, which is then being picked up by a phone, which is then being, through data transfer, going to cell tower and then going off to the Internet of Things and to the clouds. And then it's being picked up on by what, devices or, technology that's reading that signal. So if you go to the next slide, please, Christy. We also were able to discover that we weren't the only ones who discovered the signal. So when we went into the French study results, because they are open source, and we looked into their signals, we found out that they were the exact same signals that we'd picked up on with the test subjects in the UK. So again, you can see it was exactly 1 packet per emission, which is roughly 1 packet every 2 seconds. And there was also intervals. So that confirms that previous studies to us, unbeknownst to them, had been picking up on exactly the same signal as we had in our study. So the equipment that we used, just briefly, because there's going to be some technical people listening to this, was on an operating system called Kali Linux, and the software was Kismet and also Bitmoan. But the chap who helped me to put together this study, he wanted to find software that the average Joe can use, because this other equipment is very technical. You'd have to be very IT savvy to be able to use it. It's used in cybersecurity and by developers, and not everyone can get hold of this equipment. And if they can, it would take them a couple of weeks, if not a month, to learn how to use it. So we found a new software called Wireshark, which is very accessible for people. And it also works off a Mac or on Windows, for example. So people can download it, and it'd be easy for them to try and replicate what we've done in the study. And there's also Bluetooth sniffers in the Mexican study. They use something called an Ubluetooth 1. But since that study was released, the company making Ubluetooth 1 sniffers, the sniffers pick up on the Bluetooth signal that feed into the software. That company was no longer producing them. So we had to find a new sniffer, which was called a Bluefruit sniffer. And actually that was fortuitous, because this is what gave us the extra information to be able to show to you today, looking at these packets visually as to, what is coming off human test subjects. And if we're looking at, the difference between these the nanotech self-assembling within us, through Tesla phoresis, which is, I believe, is what's happening through the 5G. What's the difference? Well, in the human body, it's low intensity and they're unstable compared to a modern Bluetooth device, which is very high intensity and it's stable because it's working off a lithium battery, for example, as opposed to harvesting EMFs in the environment, or even our own bioelectricity or energy from within the human body. So there's going to be gaps because Bluetooth from devices is working in a dry environment, but when this nanotechnology is coming together, it's in a very wet environment. So you can imagine there must be times where it's coming apart and then coming together depending on what the frequencies are around them. So this is why, I feel it's very important as one of the things to do to try and remediate this technology is to be grounded, out in nature. But one more slide, I think we have to go. Yeah, so we're saying this connection, even though you can't see it, and this is where the cognitive dissonance comes in. We're talking about people aren't, there's no power behind people to go to the governments and say, we don't want this, even though they're being told about it, is because they can't see it. So a lot of people are in disbelief about it. If you can't see it, there's nothing, what can you do? So we know that this is potentially self-assembling through Tesla phoresis and giving out these signals. But what we've also discovered is that through taking a product, which is, if you go to the next slide, Christy, please.
Here we go.
Yeah. The study, as I said, was the first longitudinal and intervention study. So we were testing people not only at baseline, they were taking the nanozeolite product and they came back 5 weeks later. So two of the test subjects actually had 2 MAC addresses at baseline and the others had 1. At the 5-week mark, one of the test subjects had now one MAC address and the others still had the exact same number they had at baseline. So we didn't know what to make of that, but we made a note. And then on the 11-week mark, when the test subjects came back in the field, and what you've got to imagine is I was always using the app on my phone, which has a radar facility, and I would see the test subjects on my phone before my eyes visually saw them because they're being picked up on this radar app on my phone. But on the last day, there was no signal coming on my phone. I couldn't see them. And they suddenly appeared. And the same thing happened on the professional grade equipment because he would pick up on it as well. And we were like, whoa, okay. So we turned everything off, turned everything back on, and there was no signal again. So we had to wait another hour for the next test subject to arrive because the protocol was they arrived, an hour in between each other. And the second subject turned up and there was no signal. And then the third, an hour later, no signal. And we're wondering if we're going to hit a home run. And we did on the 4th test subject. So what we know is that there is a solution out there regarding at least this part of what's going on in the world.
Yes.
Regarding these Bluetooth signals coming off test subjects.
Well, Karen, God bless you for the work that you've been doing, seriously, underscoring everything. And I'm not sure if Judy's popped back in the studio, but I know Tom Rentz has a hard stop shortly. So, Tom, you wanted to speak to some of this, please. You've got the floor.
Yeah, thank you, Sasha. So there is there's a group out there. It's called IEEE, and they set communications protocols and standards for industry, all tech industry. So when we talk about 5G, when we talk about the internet, all these machines, they have to talk to each other, and they have to speak the same language. Well, there are numerous IEEE standards talking about the Internet of Bodies, talking about the brain-computer interface. So you got IEEE P2806, which is a brain-computer interface architecture standard. You got IEEE P2731. It's talking about vocab to ensure that you're communicating about the same way. You got a standard on in vivo neural interface research, another one on nanotechs for brain-computer interfacing. So what you've got to understand, these standards existing means that industry has came together. they've spent the money, they've spent the time to come together and to meet and to brainstorm and say, how can we do this? How can we communicate to each other? How can we communicate? And so they want their tech to be able to do this. The idea that brain-computer interface, that the nanotech, and that the connection between humanity and the technical world, I mean, it's not debatable. What Caroline's talking about is all just a manifestation of what we can prove has already been underway, a work that's been underway for quite some time. The goal of connecting humans in the internet is 100% real. The studies are underway. There are studies from MIT, Harvard, all these different groups. One of the things they talk about is, if we can read your brain and read your thoughts, how can we do that ethically to make sure we're not reading things we shouldn't? And the thing about it is if they can do it, they're going to. There's no ethics involved. There's no way to police these people. If the technology exists to read your mind, to control your brain, to connect you to the computer, they're going to use it, because there are evil people out there with evil intent. And I mean, this has been since time immemorial. So the only thing we can do is we have got to shed the light of truth on this. And then we, the people, have to come together to demand legislation, laws, different things, and to somehow find a way to police against it. Because if you can trust the government, which you can't, but it's our best bet right now, because there's just no question. Everything Carolyn said is talking about the standards exist. They aren't building these standards if they don't have a reason to. So it's underway.
Indeed. Tom, thank you so much for joining us, brother. I know you've got to get somewhere now. Really appreciate you coming to the studio today.
God bless you, Sacha. Thank you for your work. And I want to urge everybody, please listen to what Sacha's saying here, because Sacha and Scott, they've been you guys have been talking about energy. You've been talking about spirituality. What's happening now, and I'm saying this as an attorney whose job it is to present and to follow the actual evidence and stuff that even the normies can get. The evidence shows that we're moving into a whole new realm. Science fiction is becoming science reality. And some of the things that we used to think of as spirituality is, kind of this kind of, forgive me for characterizing it this way, but kind of the hippie gobbledygook. Well, it's not hippie gobbledygook. It's reality. The science hadn't caught up to what we read in our spiritual texts. It's getting to where it is. We're now getting to where the science is taking all of the stuff that was talked about our souls and our spirits and our energy and all this stuff, the interconnectedness of the universe. We're getting to the point where we can see that. I'm of the belief that one of the next stages that we're going to move into in the realm of healing is going to be with and around energy. There's science on this that's crazy, crazy, crazy advanced. Nobody's talking about it, but if it can heal, it can also harm. And we're going to have to be ready to fight this.
You got it. God bless you, Tom Raines. Thank you so much, brother, for joining us.
Thank you.
And friends, before I lose Judy Mikovits one more time, I'm going to invite her in. I want to hand the stick to Scott in a moment. And I've got something specific I want to speak to Scott about. But before we lose Judy, please, your closing thoughts in the event that we lose you. And also, I do want you to speak to the product that you've also innovated.
Well, the products include Robert O. Young's masterpiece, Robert O. Young's dear friend for life, John Hewlett with Cardio Miracle, our friend Joe Casarino with Ted Fogarty, Pro Immune, our friend Natalie Nicole with Dulce. So we make Maha Margaritas. And we did that here in Boise, and I had to take myself off the mic, off the video, because so many people right here at Boise Airport were watching you and are delighted and grateful. And I mean, so nice. How many people are here saying thank you, Robert? And I know Robert called me from jail when I was in probably the Denver airport, and every other word it wasn't that F word, but it was, it was so kind. And I'm like, why are you calling for me from jail? And it was like, Judy, get your act back together and live in love. And so thank you, everybody here today, because you guys are totally on it. And I'm so grateful for the message and so grateful for those of you.
Thank you. Thank you, Judy Mikovits. We love you, girl.
Thank you.
Scott, I want to speak to you about bringing this conversation home. Let's talk Malibu fires. Let's talk Paradise fires. Let's talk about the spontaneous combustion of entire fucking neighborhoods. Let's talk about that, shall we?
Yeah, bringing that up, Sasha. I mean, look, we've had Michelle Melendez on about the Maui fires. She did one about Pacific Palisades. I was out there right after. Sasha and I were both out there right after Pacific Palisades happened. But you know, she's shown, she was on the island in Maui, and she has her evidence of you see bodies that are literally barbecued from the inside out. And of course, you know, when we saw this stuff happening in Paradise, California, not Palisades, but Paradise, you have engine blocks with holes right through them, melted, but none of the plastics melted. I have personal contacts with people who had equipment up there. Same thing. Things that should have burned in a fire didn't. You see all just lines and lines of house pads completely scorched with all the trees around them, unaffected, untouched. It's just insanity, you know, that trying to wake people up, even showing video evidence, footage of blue lasers coming down during those attacks in Paradise, California. You know, I mean, their weapon usage is so overt now because people just simply, some refuse to believe their lying eyes. Given all of that, if people, I don't know what it will take, especially with the Palisades fires. I don't know what it's going to take for people to, not us, not the people that follow the work we do, but the rest of them, to understand and realize that this is a global machine of attack on humanity within the herd. And I think this now has become their most powerful weapon, are these directed energy weapons, all these attacks that are happening, because they can't really pinpoint, people can't pinpoint where they're coming from. There's nothing that's more of a stark reality is when the whole thing started in Wuhan in like 2020, and we'd see people, whether they're on the streets in Wuhan, they just walking along, and it seemed like everybody would just start looking upward, and I think to the left or right, and they'd spin around like they're looking up to the sky. They'd spin around and fall down and we're dead. Like there's no disease that could cause that with the human body. That had to be an energy directed operation to make those things happen that we saw over and over and over. So this whole this summit right here couldn't be more timely with what we're now coming into, because I think the revelation among the population of these weapons are going to become more prominent moving forward. I think it's going to be something that does start to wake more and more people up to this reality that we are under a global attack, and it's not going to stop until they get their way in, or until they're stopped by the powers that be that can stop them.
Indeed. You're a naturopathic practitioner, sir. Ethan, you're also an activist and a podcaster. You're kind of chasing down all the existential subjects, just like Scott and I are. Your take.
Yeah, it is interesting, like what Scott was mentioning there, where they would look up to the sky. That's definitely not something that a disease would actually do. And I believe it speaks volumes to the fact that they are somehow getting control over our minds, our bodies, through these nanobots, these nanochimeric pathogens. I've talked a lot about these nanochimeric pathogens over the years on my podcast. It wasn't a wildly popular idea that caught on. I believe it might actually be a theory of my own, just based on my own research on it. But what I see happening from the time that Fauci started monkeying with things in the laboratories in the 70s and 80s and 90s, and what we saw with the fake AIDS pandemic, which actually HIV is not even the cause of AIDS. It's the drug AZT that they give that causes the acquired immune deficiency syndrome. This is a very similar thing that happened in the 1960s in Japan with a disease called SMON, which was blamed on a virus. Later, they found out it was actually caused by the drug they were giving for the virus.
Well, that's a very Jesuitical protocol, isn't
Yeah,
it?
you don't say, right? So I think obviously we know at this point it's the same playbook with coronavirus, with COVID. We know coronavirus is nothing new. It's been around for a long time. It's the common cold virus. There's a lot of variants of it. But what they've done is they've taken certain pathogens, and I believe they've taken fungus, they've taken bacteria, viruses, amoebas, all kinds of different things, and they have just monkeyed with them in the laboratories using CRISPR technology and other things and created Frankenstein pathogens and inserted graphene oxide, which is easily malleable and controlled with frequencies. And that is what is inside of all of our bodies right now. And the only way to get that out, because it is at a nano level, is to go nano, which is why we've done that with the Zeolite and other products.
Yeah.
Because unless you go nano, you're not going to hit nano.
Right. Gotcha. Carolyn, I heard you, I think, agreeing with something being said there. Does that sit with you?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we're talking about, I want to just touch on Robert Young because I've been working with him for the last couple of years, and working with him with the formula that he has put together has been just amazing. We've done various studies which have shown that this particular product is able to remove graphene oxide from the body, very quickly within 30 days, up to 90 days in the studies, and also looking at other elements, which is polyethylene and polypropylene and PFOAs, etc. So, and now with using Robert Young's formula, we've been able to prove that it's able to remove these MAC addresses. So it's incredible work. It's incredible time on Earth right now to be part of this. And I'm really grateful to be on here today. Really honored to be able to speak to this and to, share the information that I've been, very lucky to be able to work with him to be able to bring this forth really for everybody.
Indeed. Thank you, Carolyn. Thank you so much for your work again. Very good. Well, Scott and I are pledged to stand with and by Robert and Dr. Galina Migalka as well. Her case, do not forget that. In a sense, it's even more tragic than Robert's. But we're not going to go into that here. That's not the venue, and I would need to get Dr. Migalka's agreement to do so. But the point being that I think each of us have a duty of care to pay full attention to these kinds of landmark cases. I am personally, I was horrified at the fact that there weren't 3 million people making a run on the courtroom. I genuinely thought that we'd got the fucking word out sufficiently to mobilize men with testicles, women with, rolling pins or whatever. I genuinely thought there was more animus in humans because millions of people know about these icons and these people who are being targeted. I'm one of those people to some great extent, and Scott is, and our Arise Resurrection and Arise Freedom tours attested to that in stark technicolor. People died on our tour. Multiple people died. This kind of work is dangerous. It's always been dangerous. And we rely on good people, living men and women of the living soil, as I refer to good humans, to really also stand up and do the piece. So I think this is approaching a call to action here, is just to invite people listening in to this broadcast. It's all too easy to turn YouTube on or Rumble or whatever you've chosen and to sit back and participate vicariously in the horrors of the world. The horror is coming to you. In fact, the horror is already with you. It's in your living room. It's in your bathroom. It's in your child's room where they sleep at night. It's called stealth technology. It's electromagnetic frequency intervention. It is in the waters of your cells, installing incoherence, which is cancer. All disease, whether it's mental, spiritual, or physical, all disease is to do with incoherence at the mitochondrial level, essentially at the cellular level, at the atomic level, where incoherence, distortion comes into the field. The field in and of itself is an immanent angelic template, a Garden of Eden, a paradise. That is actually the universe, the cosmos, the solar system, the planet, the plane of existence that we're born to is in its true default angelic. It can only ever be thus. But there is free will as well. And free will, alas, invites a tap-dancing devil and his checkerboard into the third density temporal realm. And It invites you and I, friends, to tap dance with it on that checkerboard, to move out of right action, to move away from pure truth in our own lives, coherence, integrity, stepping back from addictions, stepping back from being led by appetite, stepping back from being pulled or yanked by the nose, by the devil, onto that black and white checkerboard. Now that is the trial of separation, not from the beloved, but from self. From self. That's what we're talking about here. So we have to get back into phase conjugation with the angelic template. We have to pull back. It's not an idea, an abstract idea. I'm speaking specifically to you, whoever you are. You are the one who is required to move back into the still point of coherence in your life, in the living moment of now, right here, right now. Pure truth, right action. Make it so. That's coherence. When we bring coherence back into this field, it impacts all fields. The morphogenetic upshift occurs as a result of you becoming aligned with the flame of the Alpha and the Omega. I speak a language which touches the hearts of every good human and is probably an abomination to the motherfuckers out there who would run from the temple when they hear real, loving, human discourse. That's what this summit is about. It is not intended to be tidy or neat. It's inviting each of you to step over the threshold into coherence and how you can now be a part of that greater field effect. Because that's really what 5G, 6G, 12G, 328G, it's all totemism, it's all iconoclasticism, it's all bad dreaming, stuff that eventuates out there in the hologram precisely because we're not owning our angelic status. That is my closing sentiment here. I'd like to invite Mark Steele for his closing thoughts to this 5G Apocalypse Summit. Mark.
It's been brilliant to listen to everybody and all the interjection by others. Judy Mikovits stated it all. The nanometamaterials, the lanthanides in particular, are the connection to the 5G mesh network. We've discovered this electronic assault weapons, militarization of your transport networks. The IAE document, as Tom spoke about, it's the 802. It's 802 15.6. You are the transport network that they're talking about, and that's what they're connecting you to. So very important that people get off their backsides, do something, just don't talk about things. I'm a great believer in offense is the best form of defense, and we're on the offense. We have to stop these criminals. We have to stop these Satanists. We have to stop this cult from planning mass murder. Thanks, Sasha.
God bless you. God bless you, Mark. Thank you so much. Thank you. Carolyn, I'd like to invite your closing thoughts.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I feel that in this time and age right now, it's about cleansing the body and removing these toxins, because the more toxic we are, then we can't connect up to our Christ consciousness. You know, we're dumbed down. We're in this fear state. And the minute you start detoxing the body, then you feel lighter. And you can embrace, you can connect him with your consciousness and your intuition to make the correct decisions. Because I feel like a lot of people are dumbed down because they are very toxic. And what I have found in my studies that when people do detox, when they do remove these, especially this nanotechnology from their body, then they sleep better. You know, their cognitive function is a lot better. They are calmer. So this is what happens. So detoxing and getting rid of these this technology from your body, as well as all these other heavy metals and all the pollutions that we're subjected to right now, is key. That is one of the biggest keys right now.
Well, Carolyn, thank you so very much for joining us today, and I look forward to greeting you at some point in the coming months.
Yeah, look forward to it. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Bye now. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful stuff. Okay, Scott McKay, sir, I'd like to give you the floor and your closing thoughts on the subject.
Yeah, I think we have got to, I think, Sasha, what would be very effective is, and I'm sure you already have this, an access point for your work that you did with this particular documentary film or expose, where we in the audience can have access to it to start driving that traffic, getting people to start watching this now that the subject matter has become front and center in so many ways. Having a useful tool like that to get people to start to watch this. Look, this Charlie Kirk thing that happened the past week, I believe it was a major turning point, not just for this country, but for the whole planet. When you see millions of people mobilizing in the UK, 3 million people out in the streets, all the things that have been going on with that incident, that event, the mass firings across the US of media companies and universities and regular companies where people were displaying this abhorrent behavior of a murder and celebrating. All these things have never happened, and if they did, it wasn't in mass like this. So when I saw this thing, as I sat back for nearly a week, I didn't comment publicly on any of it for days. I let everybody else do what they do. I sit back and let everybody else do all the brilliant work, and then I watch and see what they all discovered and found. And then typically I'll come out 5-6 days later and I'll make my comments of what I see. What I noticed more than just digging into all the minutia of this assassination was watching the response, which was spectacular. And it told me there is truly a shift happening in the right direction on the planet. There is this awakening going on. You have leftist, liberal, lifelong Democrat voters, hate Trump, didn't vote for him, that are saying publicly, after this type of a track record, I just changed to the Republican Party today, which really is synonymous with conservatism. But there's as many criminals in that party as the Democrats.
Oh yeah.
But now that there is this reckoning that I believe has taken place, there's no better timing than for people for us to get the people's attention on this subject matter, because this, in my opinion, is their greatest weapon. It's all encompassing. It's in our faces. People don't believe these towers are there for other purposes and communication. So if that's possible, that we can start pushing this film out, and the people that are watching this today, anybody sees on YouTube, go to this link, watch this film, start spreading it around. We might be able to make some real noise or create some real waves with it. But great work on that. Great foresight, somewhat prophetic in its own nature. You putting this together then, but certainly its time has come.
Great stuff. Well, thank you, Scott. Thanks for joining us today. And I believe I can't understand why I can't drag from my fucking screen. Okay. I believe that you and I are going to be hooking up in Athens in about a week from today.
Not far from today. Yes, sir.
Looking forward to see you skipping through the streets of Athens, Scott. And then we're heading off on a 12-day mythic cruise, a sacred sites tour from ancient Greece to Turkey to Cyprus, and then Turkey, and then Egypt, and then I think we end back up in Athens. Greatly looking forward to that, Scott. And I understand from the ship that we are able to do our full broadcasting from there, so we'll have some fun.
Great. Well, I don't project seeing me skipping anywhere, but I'll be there.
God bless you, brother. Thanks for joining us today. Good stuff. Okie dokie. Ethan, this studio has just completely lost me. I can't even get myself onto a screen. I'm trying to, and it doesn't matter how I drag and drop, it's not happening.
It's fun, isn't it?
It's just absurd. Christy's
well, if people want to know,
enjoying the fact that I'm floundering. Christy, I cannot operate the studio. Perhaps you can try and help me.
I'm sure people are wondering. I want to show people how easy it is to take the nano zeolite, which is called zeolite by Sirona. Literally just 5 drops under the tongue like this. That's it. And then just hold it in your mouth.
That's Dr. Robert Young's zeolite.
That's it right there.
SEOLITE.
Yep.
Oh, there we go.
And the link is on the screen right there, or you can use the QR code there.
So this is a natural chelation thingy.
Yeah. Sirona's been nanosizing a lot of different things. We haven't yet nanosized zeolite, which is why we wanted to team up with Dr. Robert O. Young, because he already did it and did an amazing job with it. We have tested the formula in our lab, and we confirmed that it's everything that he says that it is, because I have to do my due diligence as somebody who also nanosizes other things,
Sure.
right? And we did that, and it's an absolutely amazing
Just so
formula.
you know, the only diligence you need to do is to see that he's in a prison cell.
Well, yeah, I understand that. I get
that
it.
Means
I may be next because I'm a naturopath.
that means he's a straight arrow in the medical science
No, I
community.
get it, but I'm just letting you guys know there's the only reason we're putting our name on Dr. Robert Young's formula is because we tested it in our nano lab, which is very advanced. And it is absolutely what he says it is. It's a phenomenal product. And the only way I believe to get rid of all these things inside of us that are causing these problems we're talking about today.
Very good. Okay, I want to bring on two dear friends of mine, most beloved friends of mine. Firstly, I have got to acknowledge this extraordinary man here, Professor Glenn Ryan, who I've known for many years. He's very much an icon. Some call him the latter-day Einstein. I call him Beyond Einstein. I know that he's been involved in so much extraordinary vanguard scientific research in the course of his life, peering into the invisible realms, steering the eventuation of tremendous accomplishments, like Masaru Emoto's work with water. Professor Glenn Ryan, sir, very happy to have you in the studio today. Thanks for joining the summit.
Well, thank you, Sacha. It's a pleasure to be here. And I assume everyone can hear me. So
yes.
And for the record, this is a sub panel about solutions. But before we talk about solutions, I got to put my 2 cents in for all the stuff I just heard for the last hour and a half, and go back to the 5G story, but focus on the cell phone industry, and the corruption that occurs in the cell phone industry, and just give you a couple of examples of the kind of stuff that they do to manipulate the research so that the scientists who are funded by the cell phone industry end up concluding that the cell phones are not harmful to the body. And this applies to 2G, 3, 4, and 5G research, because what they do is the scientists design the protocols to fail. In other words, to show that there's no damaging effect on the biological systems, whatever it might be. And a good example of that was, I think it was Tom who talked about the long-term exposure systems right in the beginning.
Yeah.
And he's absolutely right. It takes a long time for the damaging effects to accumulate. And here we have scientists come up with a study, and they do a 24-hour treatment. And of course, there's going to be no effect after such a short exposure time. So that's, one example. And the other thing that they do is when they get data, even if they get data that goes against what they want to publish, they have to put the data in there. But in the raw data, in the graph, but in the conclusion and in the introduction, which is all most people read, they state the opposite of what the data actually shows. So their conclusions are as consistent with what they want to say. I mean, a good example of that is a study that I just found. We're looking at 5G effects on the body and how harmful on DNA, and how a study that was just published this year from the university in Paris. Okay, and they did a time course, and there were mostly no effects at various time points, but at some time points there were effects, and therefore all you need is one damaging effect, and the DNA will be either fragmented or damaged in some way. So they show that there was an effect after 6 hours, for example, and then they conclude that there was no effect because the other time points showed no effect, damaging effect. So that's another example. Okay, well, anyway, so that's what I have to say about the corruption in the cell phone industry.
Well, thank you for adding to that. That's very helpful. I want to bring Buzz on next. Buzz is a beloved friend, and in fact, I've been staying in his and Michelle's beautiful house over the last few days, and what a fantastic time I've been having. swinging on the porch, doing my aerobic weights. You know how it is. Messing up your kitchen because you guys aren't there, and just having a wonderful time. Big, beautiful trees right in the middle of the beautiful countryside outside. What's it called? Franklin.
Yes,
Franklin, Nashville. That's like fringe Illuminati area, right?
I mean, kind of. There's a lot of Civil War stuff there.
Okay.
It's where all the rich people live here in Nashville. I can tell you that. All the celebrities.
Very good. Well, let me bring on Buzz, my dear friend. You'll need to unmute your microphone. So, friends, Buzz is the progenitor of Life Armor products, and he's the developer of Protective Technology, which is a development company that develops technologies that protect against EMF and creates resilience. And Professor Glenn Ryan here, one of the greatest academics and forensic researchers in the field in the world, has been looking at Life Armor under his microscope, and that's why I reached out and insisted that we try and get Professor Ryan in as well as Buzz. But Buzz, brother, happy to see you. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, thank you also, brother. Blessings, and thank you for all you do and for putting on this incredible event. I know when we were on tour over the summer, you were the Pied Piper with your brilliant message of hope and inspiration for humanity at this time. It made a lot of sense. And we were talking about the film, and when we first met, I said, I don't know if you get this level of toxicity and everything we're dealing with. And you brilliantly said, have you seen my film? And I hadn't. And I went promptly to go and watch the film. And I'm like, oh my gosh, we're on the exact same. We're brothers in arms,
No, I was 8 years ahead of the curve, actually.
Yes. When I saw the image of your bacon fried body, I realized that you got it.
Right, exactly. Scary stuff.
That you got it. So,
well, I didn't put those images of me being a DNA signature fried. That I did not put that in the film. That happened after the fact. But indeed, thank you for that. Buzz, talk to us a little bit, please, brother, about Life Armor. I'm kind of a bit of a junkie, so I wear Life Armor wherever I go. I've stopped manufacturing technology myself, as you know, after the 5G BioShield piece that we put out, made millions, and then got targeted by Scotland Yard, BBC, Forbes, Newsweek, International. They syndicated it just the way they do it to destroy the company, seize the bank accounts, try and throw us into controversy for fraud. That didn't work. Did it now, BBC? Did it now, Scotland Yard? It didn't work, but they threw that empire apparatus at me sufficiently to destroy my company, and that was fine. It was a tremendous learning pre-shock for me to understand how the establishment can move against you when they can't actually find anything wrong with you or your technology or your modality. They will construe a scenario to sink you. So that's dirty tricks 101. We understand that. We, however, carry something called the armor of God, yes, which satanic and luciferic forces cannot for the life of them understand how to navigate beyond, past, or through the armor of God. Let's speak about the armor of God, Buzz.
Yeah, absolutely. What we have at Life Armor, and there's a reason it's called Life Armor, by the way, it's a divine gift. It was a divine gift that these scientists had identified about 30 years ago. And because of Japan's advanced cultural appreciation for energy medicine, this technology stayed in Japan for almost 30 years. The Japanese license holder passed away, and it was brought back to the United States where the scientists had discovered it. And it is a divine natural gift of biodefense for the human body. And, there's a case for things back in nature. My litmus test, my background is I've been an environmental toxicity specialist for about 15 years. But then I also was approached by the American Academy of Anti-Aging Medicine. And Dr. Klatz, Ron Klatz, the founder of that association, he said, Buzz, we can't take one step forward in anti-aging medicine because of this bioaccumulation of environmental toxins. We're sliding 2 steps back. And he recognized astutely that the challenge is all this invisible stuff in the environment. And so for years, I've been focusing on solving the invisible challenge, sort of going to where the puck is going to be rather than where it is. And this gift of Life Armor that was brought to us about 3 years ago has the ability to enhance our body's natural biodefenses. And friends, you're looking at it right over my shoulder. This is an image of the human biofield. We are electromagnetic beings on an electromagnetic planet, Everything electrical has a field around it, and everything magnetic has a field around it. It defies logic that we, as electromagnetic beings, would not also have a field around us, and we do. And this field is basically akin to our superpower, our natural force field of defense from external stress or waveforms. The challenge is that most likely this superpower that we have just wasn't designed for the amount of bombardment we're dealing with in today's abusive, toxic tech environment. And so at Life Armor, what we do is we've developed solutions that are natural to the body, that enhance the body's natural biodefenses. And they are things that are simple as wearing a hat, wearing a bracelet, a pendant, in this shirt, a bracelet here, drops that you can put in beverages, things that you can put on your mobile device. And the concept is, let's live optimized, energized, and protected in this thriving state of being where our body is standing as a natural defender against these external stressor waves. So it's kind of a concept, a mindset that we have. We call it Life Armor living. Live optimized, live energized, protected. You're going to be on your phone anyway.
Right.
We're all in like a toxic, abusive relationship with our tech. It's so good, we're not going to quit it.
Yeah.
But we do have the ability to sort of flip the script and turn these health harmful devices into health optimizing devices with Life Armor. It's a very unique gift of technology.
Beautiful. And of course, the big secret and the unique selling point is you're 86 years old. I mean, Buzz, you're the most incredible. Oh, hang on. I've got my wrong notes here. Buzz, that was beautiful. Thank you. And thank you and Michelle for doing the Christed work that you guys do. I mean, you constantly crisscrossing America. I mean, you kind of joined me on tour earlier this year for a couple of months, which is so wonderful spending time with you guys. So I am very happy to be out there promoting Life Armor. And I'll just say to this audience, to my audience, that I have long stated that there's two things we need to be cogent about. One is the fact that we need to protect the microbiome. We need to take stuff on the inside that operates from the inside and resets from the inside. But at the same time, we have to also take care of the outer, the shielding, the EMF shielding part of it. And so for me, it's supplementary, nutritional, supplementary, structured water, stuff that you take inside. At the same time, be clear that we need to protect the living environment. We need to protect the shielding aspect as a primary consideration. Glenn, just your thought. You've worked, I know, in observing Life Armor, and I would not have normally reached out to invite you in to a show like this, except for the fact that Buzz said Glenn is truly excited about what he's been seeing in the laboratory as it relates to Life Armor. And I thought, well, I got to hear it. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, like you, I'm kind of blown away by the tech. So I've done some research and can actually verify what Buzz just said. I've developed a method for measuring the biofield at the cellular level and measuring the energy of actually cheek cells, which are easy to get from the body. And I've also used the technology to neutralize measure the effects on DNA. So what I did, the latter experiment was with a cell phone literally placed on a solution of human DNA, which you can purchase from a chemical supply company. And I measure the electrical properties of the DNA and show that they're damaged by the cell phone. Now, there's a lot of scientific research showing that cell phone energy, and including 5G, damage DNA. And so that's a well-known fact in the scientific literature. And Buzz's technology was able to reduce that damaging effect by 50%. So that's quite impressive, considering it was a very short-term experiment. And over longer terms, it's likely to increase. And the other thing, briefly, I want to say is about the biofield at the cellular level. Normally when I take measurements of my body exposed to various, usually beneficial energies, but also neutralizing harmful ones, normally I expose my my body to the energy for at least an hour, because it takes time for the body to respond to most energies. And I got like about a 50% increase in the energy of my biofield surrounding my cheek cells. So that in itself is rather large, but I've actually even seen larger. I've seen effects as large as 65% over the course of time. But what the amazing thing was that Buzz said, "Oh, don't do it for an hour, just do it for 5 minutes." And I'm going, "Oh, come on. After 5 minutes, wearing the bracelet, nothing's going to happen." I put it on, and there was a 28% increase in my biofield after 5 minutes. And I've never seen that with any technology before. So very impressive indeed.
Magnificent. And how exactly do you extract butt cheek cells?
Well, the reason I don't use blood cells is because I need a phlebotomist every time I do an experiment. So you just
now he's a
which is
proctologist.
impractical, because I do experiments at midnight, for example.
Right.
I just take a knife and stick it in my mouth and scrape the cells.
I
and then
don't think you
transfer.
got the joke. You weren't.
He didn't get.
I said butt cheek cells, but indeed, don't tell us how you extract those. We don't want to know. But
No, not that cheek. The other cheek.
Very good.
Burn the other cheek.
Professor Glenn Ryan, thank you, brother, so very much. And I'll be speaking to you shortly, because we're involved with you and our New Earth Technologies group on some desperately exciting stuff. So I'll be speaking to you shortly. Buzz, last word to you, my friend.
Yeah, I think the last word is that we should be hopeful. We should not be fearful. Nature wins. We are of nature. Nature has the defenses. Go out and ground. When you have the ability to enhance your body's energy, everything metabolically works better in the body with more energy and less stress. That's kind of our tagline, is more energy, less stress, instantly guaranteed. Because it's energy, it's instant. We've had folks tell us that when they wear this triangle combination of a bracelet and a pendant, that an X-ray cannot penetrate their field. When they go through TSA, they're asked to go through multiple times. Sometimes the device from that's tracking on the tollways, they have to move the transponder away. This biofield being enhanced, the force is strong with this one, that type of thing. We are energetic beings, and when we can enhance our energy resources, we become significantly powerful to the point to where we get to take our power back and flip the script on the system.
Beautiful.
With no behavioral modification. That's the last thing.
Indeed. Glenn, Buzz, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Okay, friends, there's three of us in the studio now. Look at that. That's a bit odd, isn't it?
You brought your clothes.
Yeah. That's the guerrilla style rig that we have set up today in the studio. In any event, we had to close. Producer Chrissy and I discussed this at great length, and we decided we had to close this summit on a very uplifting note. And what more of an uplifting note could we end on than the sound of a bumblebee or a bee? So hashtag bees everything, friends. We are teaming up. When I say we, the New Earth group, our ecosystem, we are teaming up with an incredible group promulgating very advanced science, able to replicate the frequency sets of the queen bee in simple speak, using neodymium magnets arrayed in sacred geometric forms and then encapsulated. This technological device and innovation, I think, may be one of the greatest ever. What you do is you put it anywhere and it starts to manifest bees, and it restores the bees. So it creates this harmonium field. I'm not going to try and trip myself up over the science, the hard science. We spend some good time with the scientists. We are teaming up. In fact, in our Tanasi project, New Earth Tanasi Sanctuary that we're developing, Ethan is the director and the contractor, actually running the entire development forward now. But we're building, not just having a lot of bees and hives and what have you, but we're also building a mini hub to do workshops and to promote not just the technology, but teach the world about the importance of resurrecting the insect species. Emphasis the bees.
Right. It's very important. We all die without the bees. So that's where the emphasis has to be. And I'm excited about that, building these apiaries. And yeah, New Earth is going to be very central to bee technology.
It has to become that. Has to become that. And that's just one of those things that they kind of zeroed. I think they zeroed in on the DNA signature, the generic DNA signature of bees. And then I think they used the Skynet technology, the Dragnet Skynet technologies to begin to systemically take down bees, knowing that that's how you fuck up the world's food supply, pollinating plants. That it's so clever. But it would appear that it's something akin to that, because we know that these stealth weapons for the last 40, 50, 60 years, we've been able to dial them into very unique frequency sets, like the DNA of Sacha Stone, for instance, when I was fried in 2016. And that's a clear evidence, a case, which was retro-diagnosed by the Essede Clinic in Holland many years ago, or in Belgium, I can't remember which. But that's why I've been so passionate about the subject now for the last 9 years. Since what happened to me in 2016. In any event, the point being that trillions of bees being systemically attacked through electromagnetic frequency targeting, that's a desperately serious thing. And that's how, incidentally, these satanic forces that control, and I'm talking about the corporation masquerading as your friendly government. Okay, the creature that owns that corporation, that is masquerading as a government, where even most good parliamentarians or councillors or congressmen and women aren't necessarily part of that evil. They're just kind of swept along by it. I know you're looking at a former director general in the United Nations intergovernmental sector here. So I know I went into that system for a couple of years, hacked in to understand how it is that good humans and laudable humans, kind, decent human beings, some with PhDs, get mind fucked nonetheless by a system that brings them in, compartmentalizes them, hyper compartmentalizes them. And what you have with the United Nations, or with a US Congress, or with a Center for Disease Control, or with, a Bank of International Settlements, is you have good people trapped in a rotten system that was designed to be hyper compartmentalized. And that really is why we're navigating the kingdom of the devil right now. So I know I hang out with enough military, paramilitary, intelligence people in this world, all around the world, that's been part of the fraternity that I've dived in and out of for over 20 years. 25 years. Actually, I can trace it back to 1999, 2000. So I'm familiar with that landscape, which is why I'm verbose, and I'm happy enough to come out and be outspoken and to pick my battles, but to be able to go out on the front line and bend that envelope as best as I can. I'm not the only one, but I'm certainly one of the oldest ones. I've been at it, David Icke, myself. You'd be hard pressed to find veteran activists older than David and I, maybe Max Egan, God love him. In any event, and I still am sexy as hell, as I keep telling my audience, repeat that like a mantra. In any event, I digress. We are going to end this 5G apocalypse crisis summit on the subject of bees. And I'll repeat, the New Earth Sanctuary in Tennessee that we consecrated and did the big proclamation event on Midsummer's Day this year is going to be paradise, heaven on earth. It's already underway. The building is underway, and we're going to be cutting ribbons probably midsummer next. That's certainly what we're aiming for. We're building our New Earth Technologies presence and laboratory and accommodations for our engineers and scientists right now. That's happening, and Professor Glenn Ryan is amongst that goodly crew. We're building out a full retreat center, Regenesis Life Enhancement Clinic, Spa, Retreat Experience. We're building a residential sanctuary. We have 7 Lakota plain white horses coming in to do equine therapy with Cherokee medicine woman Chief Sabrina White Horse Barnett, who's going to be heading up that side of the project. We're even bringing in Finkelstein, my little miniature white stallion from Mexico. I've decided he needs to be free range in the Tennessee hills for the rest of his life. In any event, very exciting stuff happening. Bees are going to be the integral part of what we're doing in Tennessee. So as I lurch into my middle age, you can all expect me, for one, to be speaking about the bees and the flowers and the dandelions increasingly, because I'm withdrawing my attention from the kingdom of the devil. I'm withdrawing my attention from all of that stuff. I've been at it for 25 years. I believe that we've made sufficient noise over the years. I believe we've made the difference. I believe we've pierced that corporate Sabbatean, satanic, Luciferian veil in any event. And it is my understanding of synastry and astrocartography and field architecture and totemism. It is my understanding that the world is already entering into the kingdom of heaven. So I'll leave it at that, friends. And Christy, thank you, producer Christy, for helping with this production today. Thank you to my brother, Ethan Lucas, for accommodating me and hosting me here in his studio. Thank you to my guests as well for coming in. I'm not going to announce your names without embarrassing you. We have guests in the studio. I'm very honored to have you guys here. Thank you. Chrissy, just take it away from here. Thank you.
In the grand tapestry of nature, a delicate balance weaves life's intricate threads. At its heart lies the humble honeybee, a tireless guardian of this equilibrium. Through graceful dances, bees pollinate a symphony of blooms, nurturing the cycle that sustains our world. As petals give way to fruit, their delicate touch ensures abundance to our food supply. It's a crucial reminder that our fate is intertwined with theirs. But today, this balance is faltering more and more as bee populations face unprecedented challenges. Without a collective effort to rescue our bees and enhance biodiversity, we're headed for devastation on a global scale. But amidst the chaos, a solution has emerged. A rallying cry echoes, a call to protect these guardians of our food chain. Introducing 4R Bees, a technology-driven organization that is saving bees globally and organically every day. At 4R Bees, we understand the critical role that bees play in maintaining the balance of our ecosystem. Saving the bees is synonymous with saving our planet, and 4R Bees is at the forefront of this mission. Through our revolutionary pure wave technology, along with collaboration, community education, and our corridor pollinator initiatives, 4R Bees is saving and replenishing bee populations worldwide. Our continued research and development in pure wave technology is the fundamental engine of this movement, ensuring a brighter future for the bees and for our world. The path forward is clear. To save the planet, we must save the bees. But we can't do it without you. Every dollar pledged by you for 4R Bees products is directed straight towards our mission, including providing pure wave cells to more and more beekeepers worldwide, free of charge. As a dedicated supporter of 4R Bees, you're fostering bee health, supporting global ecosystems, and contributing to a harmonious environment for our planet. It's an unequivocal win-win situation for all. And at 4R Bees, we make the mission of saving bees fun for everyone. So what are you waiting for? Join this incredible movement today. Visit 4rbees.com to learn more about how you can save the bees and redefine the course of our future. 4R Bees, saving bees, saving the planet.
Beautiful stuff. Well, there you have it, friends. I'm absolutely thrilled at the end of a 5G crisis summit, speaking about the apocalyptic dimensions of how stealth intervention into the human body and into our biosphere is arguably the gravest existential threat facing humanity. It's been dialing in for many long years, really since the 5G apocalypse film that I put out in 2017-18. But the fact being, it's now well attested by the scientific community and people all around the world. In fact, I only just received a message this morning from a beloved friend of mine, Laura Uplinger, who is one of the leading doulas in the world, and has been for years, president variously of the International Doula Society, and engaged for 30 or 40 years in consciousness of the unborn child and in the scientific inquiry about birthing and perinatal and so on. And she sent me a message this morning saying that in her line of work, they're seeing catastrophic failure of birthing connected to what they believe is electromagnetic frequency intervention. So we're almost certainly going to have to take up another conversation on that piece as it relates to perinatal. In any event, in the studio right now, I have a remarkable man who I'm intending to lasso squarely into the New Earth fold. I've already spoken to him about this. And in Tennessee at the New Earth Tenacity Project, we're planning to build a bee sanctuary around the science of this remarkable man. And we intend that bee sanctuary in the heartland of Middle America to become the beacon of how we can help to syndicate and franchise out the breakthrough technology that this man has innovated. And it is staggering. So I have already put it to the personal test, or at least my mother did. And as I keep saying, mothers do not lie. But we did get this technology sent out to Portugal, to the Algarve. My mum has said that for the last 3-4 years, there have been no bees. And within 2 days of me leaving the Algarve a month ago, she called and said, I don't believe it, but they are everywhere. So that for me was personal, anecdotal evidence that it is a catalyzing phenomenon. It's an incredible technology. It's a very, very exciting upshift in where we take our own food supply and the capacity to remediate and ameliorate our immediate biosphere. So Brent Knudsen is co-founded 4RBs. You can see the strip below, and you can follow that if Christy will put the strip up. Thank you. An initiative dedicated to safeguarding pollinators and restoring coherence to our natural world. And their team is pioneering solutions to one of the most urgent crises of our time, as I've mentioned, the collapse of the bees, and with them, our food system. So let me introduce to you Brent Knudsen. Good to see you, brother.
Oh, geez, Sacha, it's an honor to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Well, exciting stuff. I mean, for me, for a number of years, like most good humans, I've had a keen sense of affinity to bees and the problems that bees have increasingly been finding, gaining traction in this world. And this is all connected to electromagnetic frequency intervention. The science is out. We all know it. It's an honor to have you, but I want you to start by giving us a sense of just how serious the pollinator crisis has become.
Well, yeah, that's a great question, because that's how I got in with the bees. Originally, I didn't start that way. Originally, I was my background is really all mathematics and geometry, and I was absolutely fascinated in sacred geometry through, for the last 35 years. And when I had the opportunity to break away from the corporate world over 15 years ago, I decided to dedicate to go into figuring out the geometric forms and shapes that alter frequencies at a blueprint, at a core level. And so what I got into doing was taking the geometric form that I found was everywhere, simply everywhere, every religion, in every form of nature, snowflakes in our medical system, everywhere. And I found that that geometric form was actually at a blueprint at a cellular level for all creatures, us, animals, insects, plants. We all started out with this geometric form, which is the flower of life, and the star tetrahedron, which is the Star of David, what people recognize. So we combined that geometric form and then held it into a magnetic frequency. I'm skipping ahead quickly here as to what that started to affect, and it started to affect every human that I had involved with it, and did a lot of research on how it affected their health and their immune system. So that, back to your question, in 2015, when I was made aware of the horrendous loss for the bee population, I started to utilize this technology to assist with the bees. So I started off with doing comparisons with hives without it and hives with it. And it was phenomenal, the change in building their, and how they were attracted to it, incredibly attracted to the frequency. So literally we're taking ancient geometric forms and then holding them with magnets. And we will show this later on so that it's clearer for people, and how we captured this algorithm frequency that affected them so dramatically. Back to your question about how 5G, when we started to get into it in 2015, what the bees were up against. Yes, there was pesticides. Yes, there was food source, but the 5G became absolutely critical. We actually even show it in our video as to how the bees respond to that 5G frequency, even like baby monitors and things like that. They just went crazy and disoriented. So that's when we knew that that was a big factor in disrupting and causing directional and health problems, as it does with us, for the bees. And so then I started 4R Bees in 2001. After all that research and going through with bees for about a 5-year period, I said, okay, it's time to go out there. And we started 4R Bees to deal with food source, 5G interference, putting the technologies in the hive. And all of this is provided to the beekeepers at no charge. That was critical, because 96% of all bees are controlled by beekeepers. So we put this out, and the response has been phenomenal. Sacha, with the public coming into us, and then we took honey from those hives, and I'll stop there. But that stands your question. The interference.
No. I'm loving this. You're actually negating the need for me to ask a whole bunch of questions I had, and I love the fact that you're threading it all together. So, what excites me about this is not that it's just about the bees; it's about rebalancing life itself. So, how do you see that this work is fitting into the bigger picture of resilience and renewal for humanity?
Well, what transpired out of it, before I even got into the bees, so many people, like I built a facility and lab that dealt with doing all the research, and that lab blocks out all the 5G, blocks out all radio waves. So I really got into, and this would be in like 2014, about blocking all this out for us as an environment, and that went unbelievable when people would come into that environment, because we're so used to it. Once they came into that environment, they couldn't believe the difference. And in that environment, I was doing the training. So I was really working with people from a health standpoint. So the pure wave cell ended up being really beneficial to people for things like inflammation under their pillow, dealing with blocking out other interferences. Then I sent it to a food lab, and we found out that it countered pathogens in food like E. coli and so forth. And we did all our studies, and that ended up being where we literally were reducing, just by 5 minutes exposure, we were countering Listeria, E. coli, and all kinds of pathogens just by neutralizing them with one frequency to the other, just like sound canceling headphones. You can cancel one, because everything, all disease and all pathogens, they're just a frequency. So we wanted to counter that. And this as a blueprint. So we started looking in at a cellular level, and mitosis showed us that all we had to do was do this canceling. So as humanity was really getting it, but I decided not to go into the medical, because I knew the more that I would get success there, the more heat I would get from the system. So I circumvented it and decided to go into the bee population. And of course, everybody picked up on it. It was really doing amazing with the bees, so that they picked up on it. Must be fantastic for them and their pets, dogs, cats. And we have, and the birds, we have, testimonies all over. So it's really helping all humanity and, across the board.
Very good. So let's talk about the products, please. For those moved by this subject and who wish to participate, you've also created, Brent, tangible ways that people can engage with and support the good work. So share a bit about that, and the links and the codes are below here.
Oh, thanks, Sacha. Well, what happened, a byproduct of going, and it always works this way, a byproduct of going out and helping all the beekeepers, what happened is the honey that was produced in those hives that were dramatically increased from the pure wave cell, we buy the honey from those beekeepers. So that product coming out of those hives and it being a superior honey that we then buy at fair market value through, because we have beekeepers in Africa, Kenya, Africa, in Norway, all through the States. And so what we wanted to do is get the value of that honey coming out. And then we creamed it so we didn't have to heat it. So it's raw and it's the most superior honey you'll ever taste. And then we supercharged it because I used the technology for the frequency. So we energized it. And we have all those on our site when you want to go to see this. And then so people were buying the honey. They buy it by the case all over the world. Mostly in the States and Canada, because some places in the world we can't ship it to. So I just want to make that clear. There's a lot of problems with that, not the pure wave cell, but just honey. And that started to really feed back to the bees, and people were supporting that. So to answer that, and then the pure wave cell, for all the money that's coming in when they purchase that, we put free cells out to the beekeepers. So they're supporting two things: their own health, and then they're supporting the health of all the bee populations, which are now exploding. So those are the two ways. And people pledge. We now have people that are pledging land to freeze up so that for pollination, that's happening a lot now. And we get a lot of donations. And that's basically how we're getting all this out to the beekeepers. And we look to really explode even more next year.
Beautiful. Well, brother, very excited. And to my audience, just recall what I said earlier. We are planning to build a for our bees hub in the heart of our New Earth Tennessee sanctuary. That building is underway this week. Actually, that's why I'm in Tennessee. Just spent the last 2 weeks on the land. Things are looking terrific. But bees are going to be an integral part of that, because spreading that particular word to people of Middle America and beyond is becoming a very serious matter indeed. And I'll be taking this also to Africa, Southeast Asia, and Central America, to our other projects, Brent. So looking forward to helping to syndicate the technology. Very excited about what we're seeing already. Brent, thank you. And please extend love and gratitude to Lisa as well for showing us something as small and life-changing as protecting our bees. That directly connects to the survival of our species. And it's very, very deeply inspiring to know that a solution like this is so attainable, something which anyone and everyone can bring to bear in their own homes, in their own lives. Thank you for joining us today on the 5G Crisis Summit.
Thank you. Thank you so much for letting people know what we're doing.
God bless you, brother. Okay, friends, there you have it. Brent Knudsen, for our bees. Follow the links below here, please. If you wanted to get any of the product sent to you, do so. And please keep in close touch with us, because, like I said, this is a movement that we intend to grow forward, scientifically speaking, in academia, helping to promulgate this science, this technology forward. Just think about it. Frequency emulation that essentially is the sound of the queen bee, bringing creatures back to bear. And I just think that every single home on the planet ought to be at this stage thinking about galvanizing beekeeping. Can you imagine that? 9 billion beekeepers on the planet. I think that would just about do it. In any event, friends, I'm glad to have been able to wrap up and sign off on the 5G Apocalypse Crisis Summit with something as beautifully refined and spiritually balanced as a return to the harmonium, the fractal, scalar, and torsion harmonium of Mother Earth, as we glimpse it through the lens of the inner ear, the sound of bees, no more, no less. Thank you, friends.
Welcome to the world of inventions for energy medicine. I'm Bee Broda. According to the Canadian Association of Professional Apiculturists, Canada lost almost 50% of their bee population in 2022. Researchers at the University of Waterloo feel insecticides are compromising the bee's immune system. Dr. Magda Havis, Professor Emerita at Trent University School of the Environment, believes magnetic fields also play an important role in the health and wellness of the honeybee population.
We did some research at Trent University where we were studying the effects of radio frequency radiation on the bees. We had some beehives at a farm and exposed them to current household items that we have that emit wireless radiation. One of the things we noticed is that the bees started coming out of the hive very, very quickly.
You look at their behavior, they're all just quite happily, they're not running around, they're kind of very settled, they're fanning, they're keeping the place cool and protecting, as these ones are running up and down at the entrance. The sounds here is not normal.
Dr. Havas is participating in a long-term research study on the use of geomagnetic fields to enhance insect and human immune systems and negate the effects of environmental pollution that may be causing the collapse of the honeybee population. This research is based upon a geometric array of 12 high-intensity magnets that are encased inside a hard enclosure to create a pure wave cell. The opposing polarities of the magnets create a spiral vortex that emanate outwards in all directions. This spiral pattern can be observed with magnetic viewing film. Liquid ferrofluid placed in a dish on top of the pure wave cell shows the invisible, evenly spaced magnetic lines rising upwards. This is an internal view of the magnets. A pure wave cell can be used to control the growth of pathogens. The vortex suppresses bacterial infestation. Spores grown in a petri dish that were not exposed to the magnet shows a proliferation of fungal growth. A study has been completed at Pathogenia food laboratories to determine the efficiency to reduce pathogens in food. Brewer's yeast, E. coli, Staphylococcus, and Listeria were added to meat and fruit and then treated for 5 minutes on the magnetic disc. Ground chicken and raspberries were chosen for inoculation. This study demonstrates 3 forms of Listeria were not reduced in the chicken, but showed almost a 50% reduction in the raspberries. Surprisingly, 1 form of brewer's yeast grew 50% faster in the meat, while another was reduced a similar amount in the fruit. The various forms of E. coli were eliminated in the raspberries. And all forms of Staphylococcus have been significantly reduced. When you immerse food inside a pure wave, there are many examples of how it can prolong the shelf life. Here, cauliflower remains fresh after several days, while unexposed control samples show signs of food spoilage. Research on honey is carried out here.
The first year we had 10 magnets and we were quite happy with it. Last fall we ended up with 30 magnets in the 1 bee yard.
In this yard here, there's about 30 hives. This yard did not get the discs. And when I came in to unpack the hives, half the yard was dead, and the half that survived, there were barely any bees, and they were not looking good at all. And now in this yard, we wintered 30 hives in here. All 30 got the magnetic disc. When I unpacked it, all 30 were alive and overflowing with bees to the point where I had to split almost every hive in this yard. But it's swarming because they've run out of room. Like, it's just a super strong hive.
Dr. Havas feels that the magnets are improving the immune system of the honeybee as they move through the pure wave magnetic field while foraging for nectar in the farms and forest. Many beekeepers have great success with the magnets, not only having a healthy hive, but they have found an increase in the yield of honey. Education plays an important role with the company that produces the magnets. They organize workshops called 4R Bees to teach a new generation of potential beekeepers how to plant wildflower seeds in open pastures to help support the health and wellness of our insect pollinators. For more information on how you can help save the bees, visit 4rbees.com.